current OpenGov Chicago meetup. We're having an interesting new topic, which is open science with an exclamation point. So anytime you say something like open science, you gotta be like, open science! Anyway. Yeah, I was trying to be Hy-Vee.
You was being Hy-Vee?
No, that's not working out. All right, so how many people here have been for the first time in OpenGov Chicago? All right. Love to see you. This is making it happen. This is what we're here for. Which is not to say that I hate all of you who have arrived before, but it's good to see new people. So we have a great lineup, and what I thought we might do, there's two things that first of all, does anybody have an announcement? Joe, we've lost announcements. We used to have announcements, and then I think I flaked a couple times. And
maybe no one has anything to announce.
Do you have anything to announce, Joe?
The people downstairs would have preferred if you had the name tags in alphabetical order, but they're actually great. They're actually very nice about it. They were very nice about it. It's like, Dan should have sorted this.
Are they?
But they
I
were
hope they.
alphabetical order by first name.
They didn't go with the program, which is just give anybody anything. That's the normal one, is we just give out anything.
Security guards, they can't send them.
I should have talked to them more.
But
You were
nice
dubious,
about it.
were you not,
They
Sonia?
actually said nice things about you guys.
They did? How do they like the sandwiches?
They didn't say about that, but
Okay.
they said to be good.
All right. We got to be good to everybody. So, has everybody had enough sandwiches? You have to continue to eat sandwiches. Yeah? Monica, you have
It's
a...
not about the same.
Oh, go ahead.
I didn't try
Give us-
it.
Announcement.
Well, I was just going to say, I can make an announcement about some science
Announce.
coming up.
Please.
I would love to do that. Okay. My name is Monica Metzler. I'm the head of the Illinois Science Council, which is an independent nonprofit, not funded by the state. We do public outreach programs in science, technology, and math. But unlike I think what the program or the speakers are going to talk about kid angle stuff, we're about the adult public. We're not anti-kids. We're just pro-adult. So just because this is a really huge month for us, we got 4 events coming up, and all of them are free and open to the public. You're all welcome to come. The first one is this Saturday. It's the beginning of what I'm trying to do called Saturday Morning Science. It's going to be at the Cultural Center, and it's called Marijuana, Microbes, and Milk, Science Behind Some Health Policy, with a couple researchers from U of I and Champaign. So 10 o'clock, Cultural Center, Saturday morning, Marijuana, Microbes, and Milk. And I put a line, we will not be providing samples of items. Then on Monday night, we're very lucky to have popular science writer Jennifer Oliette, who is going to be here to talk about her new book. This is the beginning of what we call our brain neuroscience for the neuro-curious. Her book's called Me, Myself, and Why, Searching for the Science of Self. So that is Monday night at the Harold Washington Library, 6 o'clock. And then on the 2 weeks later, on Monday the 30th, we will have Dr. John Grant from University of Chicago, JD, MD, MPH, really smart guy. He's an expert in behavioral addiction, so we'll be talking about your brain on addiction, particularly things like gambling, sex, is that an addiction, exercise addiction, behavioral addictions. So that will be fun. That's 6 o'clock at Tech Nexus over at 20 North Wacker. And the next night, that's Monday, June 30th. And then Tuesday, July 1, is going to be a continuation. It's called Your Brain and Beauty. And we have Dr. Renee Engeln from Northwestern, who's an expert in cognitive psychology, and she's talking about the fact that even though we all say, oh, it's what's inside that matters, our brains are kind of wired to seek out beauty and appreciate it. So what do we do with that? So marijuana, microbes, and milk. Me, Myself, and Why on Monday. Following Monday is gambling, sex, exercise addictions, and Tuesday the 1st is brain and beauty. So any and all. What's the name of your organization again? It's called the Illinois Science Council. You can find us at illinoisscience.org. Illinois spelled out 2 L's, 2 S's. Check your spelling. illinoisscience.org. Events, and we produce our own events, but we also will list programs done by other Chicago area science organizations that are aimed for adults. Wide variety. And you can also sign up for our email newsletter on that to be sure that you know about all the upcoming things, or just hit me up afterwards with Carter and me. So So that was long, but I had a lot.
That's great.
A lot of
Great.
good stuff.
Does anybody else have an announcement at this time? Yep.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Dan, and I have a sort of tentative announcement. Mark your calendar type thing. Nick over here and I, who I think a lot of you probably know, are working on this concept called Map Time. And it's essentially a place for you to come and learn and work together on how to make maps and how to interpret geospatial data. Extremely beginner-friendly, very interactive. So we're tentatively planning our first event for July 17th. We don't have any real web presence yet, but we do have a Twitter account with no tweets. And it's at MapTime CHI, so MapTime Shy. So stay tuned for that, and if you're interested in making maps, learning how to make maps, or helping other people learn how to make maps, come talk to one of the two of us afterwards. I have some rainbow stickers if you are interested in putting a sticker on something. So that's it. Map time. Come talk to us afterwards.
Awesome. Thank you. Who else has an announcement? Let's have it. Okay. Who here, before we get started, is a member of the Hive? Yeah, what you got, Joe?
People here might actually care. So a couple months ago, we did the talk about census data in Chicago. There's two things. So one, Peter's doing the class that he talked about in, I think, like a week and a half. Find me afterwards if you want to know the details about it. But he's doing a class at the University of Chicago about using census data. And then also, I generated ACS census data tables for Chicago community areas for most of the census. So if that's ever something you kind of wanted. I don't really know where to put it or how to tell people about it, but I have it and I would love to share it. So if you're into that stuff, let me know.
Why we can't, we'll host it.
Well, I mean, I put it up on a Google Drive. I just don't know how people will know that it's there. But we could talk about
We'll talk about it later,
it. Okay.
What do you got?
So on the 19th of June, which is Thursday, at 4 o'clock, the Illinois Task Force on Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship meets. It's a very broad and diverse group. The public is welcome. They take testimony from a variety of stakeholders and policy experts. Speaker is going to be Howard Lerner of the Environmental ELPC, Environmental Law and Policy Center. Anyone's welcome to come, and they're on Eventbrite. If somebody's interested, you can see me afterwards.
Okay. Who else? Yep.
On August 2nd, the second annual Chicago Southside Maker Fair is happening, which is an awesome opportunity to come out and show off some of your visualization of the data and share with others how they can do the same thing. This maker event is open to all. It is free. Chicago Southside MakerFair.com gives you all the information that you need.
Where is it happening?
4th City Mall, southwest side of the city, 2 miles south of
I
Midway.
figured south side.
Yeah, 2 miles south of Cicero. 2 miles south of Midway Airport.
Okay. Jackie just reminded me I have an announcement, which is, we're doing a program this year called Civic Summer, where we go around and talk to youth about technology, open technology, civic data, and stuff like that. And then this year we added a new twist to it, where we'll go anywhere and talk to any set of kids of any program you got going on. And I just finished the form, the description of what we're doing, and then a sign-up form. And I know you were talking about maybe I can come down there. That'd be awesome. So I'll post a link to it in the meeting minutes. Please, for the meeting minutes. Did everybody get this note about the meeting minutes? You can all get in this document and we can type together. International sign of being on the internet. Right? We can get on there and type it. Usually I'm sitting there lonely with no aardvarks or anybody. And, come on, we can do this. Who here is in the Hive Learning Network? Raise your hand. Yay. Okay, so our speakers are from the Hive Learning Network. Here at Smart Chicago, we're part of the Hive Learning Network. It's a different sort of thing, right? It's a civic and culture. I wrote it down. Anyway, Hive Learning Network is a place where we can all hang out and do stuff. And we kind of do things different at the Hive Learning Network. There's always like a shed. It's a whole different language. It's a whole different way of doing things. One of the things that I found out in youth work, you got to have interactive? Sure. No, energizer.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, as if the kids aren't energized. Youth are not energized enough. But anyway, let's just, because we have new people and everything, let us go around the room really quick, Who are you? Where are you from? What's the best thing you're going to do this summer? My name is Dan from Smart Chicago. Best thing we're going to do this summer is purchase and light off an enormous amount of fireworks because I love my country. What else?
My name is Bridget Keene. I'm a science journalist. I am going to hunt for lots of bugs with my kids in the backyard, and then we're going to document it, hopefully on a blog.
I'm Josh Calof. I'm an open data developer, and I'm going to go try a bunch of new restaurants.
I'm Karen Jeffrey, and I head up the ed tech company for all rubrics. And the coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is badge Jackie's Maker Fair.
I'm Jackie Moore. I'm from Level Up. We have a mall-based makerspace. The cool thing I'm going to do this summer is to get about between 30 and 50 kids excited about making something for the first time.
My name is Melinda Wills. I'm from the south side of Chicago. The cool thing I'm going to do this summer is try to get a job in a micro lab.
And my name is Paula Wills, also from the south side of Chicago. Cool thing I'm going to do is fix my car battery.
I'm John Owens from Oak Park. I'm a GIS consultant, and I'm working at our farmers market to help subsidize link card users buying fresh fruits and vegetables.
I'm Steve Rinkevich. I'm a communications strategist. My awesome thing this summer is to sit down and talk with the guy that's been lighting fireworks in the alley, waking me up when I get stuck.
My name is Audrey Peterson. I am a writer and a researcher. I have no idea. I don't have anything planned.
We can fix that.
My name is Monica Metzler. I'm with the Illinois Science Council. My grand plan for the summer is to try to grow the Illinois Science Council. Yeah, it's an ongoing question.
Adam Rowe, program manager, and my ambition for the summer, it's simple, to actually go through Game of Thrones. Too many friends are telling me to. I'm just tired of it.
I'm Tommy Good. I'm working on my master's of ed. I'm working this summer with Dave and Raphael at the Big Notibark Museum. And since I'm still new, I feel like I should say that's the coolest thing I'm going to do this summer.
Nice job, Tommy.
Hi everybody, my name is Annalise Beto, and I'm from Chicago Botanic Garden. We have a middle school and high school science career continuum. That's going to be the awesome thing.
Hello, my name is Melanie Moore. I'm environmental consultant. The most awesome thing that I'm going to be doing this summer is working with others in the Chicago Botanic Garden, teaching high school students about environmental science, and they're going to earn college credit.
I'm Heidi Massey, and I work with nonprofits to help them use technology a little better. And I don't know, I just got here. I think this might be one of the I would really like to expand some of my work into things related to health and education and nutrition with the low-income community. So have a couple of cool meetings set up. So if I can get that to happen, it'll be a good summer.
Hi, I'm Juanita Garcia, and I'm a mechanical designer. I have a background in sustainable building design. And the coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is the experiment of my first time growing in a community garden. So it'll be tomatoes and okra. So I'm looking forward to a big pot of gumbo.
My name's Dave Kramer. I'm a native Chicagoan, and I do a lot of things, so I won't bore you with that. The coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is buy fresh produce from Burmese refugees that are growing it right through Chicago. We'll compare more.
Hello. Hi everyone. I am an architecture student, and the coolest thing I've been doing this summer is rewatching the entire
I'm Grace Hoff. I am a remote grad student at Carnegie Mellon University, and the coolest thing I'm going to do
Sadly, it's probably right
I'm Liz Hines. I recently moved here from Madison, Wisconsin, to start a job. I'm a senior analyst at Biostatistics Group, and the coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is spend time exploring Chicago.
My name is Matt Key. I'm in Chicago, in North Chicago, and the cool thing I'm excited to do this summer is to try to figure out how to get high school students through this data learn-a-thon to work with data about the city and learn how to use it to make the city better.
Hi, I'm Greg Amenta. I work with electronic medical records. Coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is run a 10K, I guess. Maybe.
My name's Jana Nugent. I'm a graduate student at the University of Chicago. The coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is I'm taking a Raspberry Pi and I'm going to instrumentalize my beehives so I can get temperature, humidity, and weight.
My name is Laura Hamilton. I'm the founder of a health tech startup called Additive Analytics. And the coolest thing I'm doing this summer is hopefully making some cool healthcare tools based on open healthcare data.
I'm Nick. I'm a software developer here in Chicago. Coolest thing I'm doing this summer might be learning how to sew.
I'm Dan. I work at an environmental nonprofit called the Delta Institute. And this summer, I hope to spend a lot of time riding my bike and learning how to make maps at halftime.
Dan Olkin. I'm an intern from Syracuse University over at the Sweetwater Foundation in the manual. Going to do everything and all that I can around aquaponics and learn about Chicago. So,
I'm Jennifer Henry and I'm CPA, and
my name is Tom Schenk. I'm the Director of Analytics for the City of Chicago. Coolest thing I'll probably do this summer is run double-blind experiments throughout the city.
Be very afraid. You're in one right now.
I'm doing experiments. I'm going to be sailing around the San Juan Island, Washington State. You might think I'm planning my vacation around recent legislative initiatives, and you'd be right. I'm very excited about the new minimum wage. Yeah.
I will be looking to see everyone of you and going to discuss with you a few moments.
Hi, my name is Daryl. I'm a project program manager, and I intend to take advantage of as many festivals and block parties as I can.
I'm Chris Rawls, and my firm does experiential social media for government and companies. The coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is probably deliver a major healthcare social business project, kicking off a couple others. So I'll be busy all summer.
My name is Karen Roach. I work at LIST, go to Local Initiative Support Corporation, and this summer I am thinking about planning some bike tours through Chicago's industrial corridors.
Hello, my name is Anand Diab. I'm a game designer and a co-founder of Freedom Games, which you will know more about soon enough. The coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is either learn how to swim, because I never did, or learn how to code, or both.
At the same time.
Or code while I'm swimming.
Do not do it at the same time.
No, it's wrong.
I'm Carmen Vidal-Hallet. I'm an architect and urban planner, originally from Brazil. So starting tomorrow, just the World Cup. And so the coolest thing I want to do this summer is to watch the games, to teach teenagers about sustainable development, and to dance flamenco with Sol and Duende, which is artists in residence at the Chicago Art District.
Hi, I'm Joe Jermoska. I'm from Rogers Park. I'm an open data advocate and generally encourage people to not be afraid of technology. And the coolest thing I plan to do this summer is to maximize opportunities for free concerts in Millennium Park and Grant Park.
Hi, I'm Manuel. I'm from Buenos Aires, Argentina, so welcome too. And I'm a software developer, currently an international fellow at the Night Lab in Northwestern with Joe here. And the first thing I'm going to do this summer is move to Boston to start grad school.
I'm Jesse Dabner. I'm a developer in Chicago, and I'm going to canoe the Boundary Waters this summer.
Hi, I'm Laura Lytle. I'm a manager of learning programs at Shed Aquarium. And the coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is I'll be working with Shed's Research Vessel. We'll be taking a group of teenagers down there to do some research down in the Bahamas.
Hello. Hi, I'm Heather Schneider. I am the Assistant Director of Learning Programs at Shed Aquarium. Something exciting this summer is a lot of fun shed stuff. I'm really just excited to get outside with my kids and make up for the indoor time we had to spend during this winter. So.
I'm Bruce Paul. I volunteer in a lot of stuff, especially with kids and disabled. The coolest thing we're going to do this summer is kind of split. Starting my own business. I'm hoping to get one of my disabled friends to show up at 1871.
I'm Lindsay Darling. I'm a researcher at the Morton Arboretum, and the coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is ride the Hilly 100 in Bloomington, Indiana.
Tanya?
Hello, my name is Tanya Martiano. I work with Chicago. I'm pretty sure what my name is. Okay.
Okay, good. So let us now turn our attention to the coolest damn thing in the summer. And go.
My name is Kyla Williams. I'm the program officer here at Smart Chicago. The coolest thing I'm going to do this summer is next month I'm running the Warrior Dash in Michigan. Now, I haven't ran since 1992, so I don't really know how that's going to work out, but I'm in it to win it.
I'm Dave Bilt. I'm an educator at the Peggy Notabart Nature Museum, and this hive mapping cooperative is probably the coolest thing that I'm going to be doing this summer, I gotta say.
Okay. Rafael Rosa, I'm the head of the education department at the Nature Museum. The coolest thing I want to do this summer is take my oldest to college on August 18th. So, first day.
Nice. Manuel Pratt, co-founder, is executive director of Sweetwater Foundation, director of Aquaponics Center, Chicago State. Coolest thing of the summer is going to be celebrating my daughter's 2-year-old birthday with my wife. Second thing is, runner-up, of course, is the Hive Mapping Cooperative, trying to figure out how to make sense of all of these experiences, like taking a shoe warehouse and turning it into an urban farm, getting a 2-acre farm in a city block, and a public art installation with the Chicago Transit Authority Red Line station.
Hi, I'm ambitious. My name is Eve Tilford. I'm co-founder at Freedom Games. We do EdTech development with youth and teacher leaders. Coolest thing this summer, well, I'm really excited to map bees, which I'll tell you about in a little bit. And I'm really extra excited to work with youth to devise a field game for teaching kids about the bees' waggle dance. Nice. It helps the bees find the flowers. Yeah.
All right, Dan, we ready to go?
Yeah, Hive Mapping Cooperative.
Hive Mapping Cooperative. All right, there's the opening screen. So I'll be doing some of the introductory work here, but these guys are actually the ones who are going to be actually doing the programming this summer. But I'll share a little bit about how the program got started, a little bit about the Hive Learning Network, and then we'll get into what we're attempting to do this summer, and hopefully some conversation with you guys about thoughts you may have about what we're trying to accomplish over the course of the summer with the students. So I noticed not a lot of you know much about the Hive Learning Network. I'll just briefly describe what the Hive Learning Network is. The program is a project of Mozilla, funded by the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation's Digital Media and Learning Initiative. The idea is really focused on digital media and how youth can use that for learning, socializing, participating in civic life, how they use digital media basically to engage, and how we can take advantage of that for us to engage with youth as well. The Hive Learning Network provides grant funding for organizations within the Hive Learning Network who are looking to experiment with this sort of thing. And so that's where this Hive Mapping Cooperative came from. we received a Hive Chicago grant. Hive is in a number of cities here in the nation. Hive Chicago is going to be 5 years old, I believe. Yep. Hive is 5 this year. And so we received a recent grant for what we're calling the Hive Mapping Cooperative. The idea is that we are all doing things with students and data. We had an interest in the Nature Museum, Dave did, in trying to figure out how to engage with the students in doing mapping as well. And what we're finding were a lot of things out there that didn't really seem to fit our needs with high school students and trying to teach them how to do data visualization and mapping and that sort of thing. ArcGIS is great, but how do you do that with a bunch of 16, 17, 18-year-olds? So a lot of this came out of that sort of concept. Hive itself was a great place to go to for this because one of the things that they really stress is peer supporting and collaboration, right? You can't go into a program on your own. You've got to work with other groups. So it forces you to go out and look for other people who are like-minded, who are looking for these sorts of things as well, and who can help you bring a project to its end. So that really got us in touch with Emmanuel and what they're doing at Sweetwater. You're going to learn about that more later. Same with what the Nature Museum is doing. Connected us with Dan and Kyla here at Smart Chicago as we're trying to figure out who the heck out there has the basics of the tech knowledge we need to try to figure out what to do with this, right? We're doing a lot of science. We've got a lot of random stuff, but we need somebody to help us put this together. So because we're all part of Hive, that allowed us to really connect that up. There are a lot of other people who are engaged with Hive as well, who we've connected up with, Eve at Freedom Games and a number of other organizations as well, to help us put this together. The basic concept behind this is that through these Hive members and so forth, so you can see the members of our group for this coming summer. The basic idea is what we want to do is we want to engage youth through the concept of data collection and, more than that, visualizing, analyzing, and presenting this data, right? Not simply collecting it for data's sake, but doing something with it beyond that. We had put together in our grant a few project deliverables. What we said we would accomplish in a short 6 months or less, actually, because once you finally get the funding, it's a little bit less than 6 months. We would try to develop our strategies to teach mapping and analysis of spatial data to youth. So a lot of things out there for adults, but we're going to try to figure out a way to share with the Hive network. The idea, again, is not that this is simply for us. You'll see on the bottom bullet point, whatever we learn this summer, we need to share it, right? That's a big goal of Hive. Open source, right? All of this needs to get out there so other people know what we've learned. So our last project deliverable will be sharing this with Hive, telling the other organizations what we've learned, and hopefully moving this project forward from that point. Now, in addition to the strategies, what we're trying to do is identify tools that will let youth do this sort of thing. You'll see our kind of lofty goal here: informing, creating, sharing, inspiring narratives around environmental, social, and political issues. Big goal. One of the big things that we're looking at here is what is the relatively low, what can we find that's a relatively low barrier to engagement, right? I mentioned the GIS sort of things earlier. What are the things that are out there or that we need to put together that are going to be low to no cost, and it's open source? Because a lot of the youth that we want to work with, that's going to be a huge barrier, right? Cost. Secondly, it's got to be something that is relatively easy to use, because we're hoping that beyond what we come up with, if youth come across this themselves, they can at least get started with it. So it's got to be something that's relatively easy to use. I use that term relative because we know we're talking mapping and visualization. It's not that simple. So we're trying to find that. In addition, we want it to be robust enough to do something, right? It's not simply putting points on a map and that's it. So we have a lot of things we're trying to accomplish. And that's part of the reason we're here with you guys tonight. Share where we're at this point and hear what other people are doing and figure out where we can go with from that. You'll also notice that we bolded this concept of Chicago-based, right? There are a lot of national projects out there. We expect our youth to contribute to some of that, but we really value local relevance, right, to get those kids engaged. So whatever we're collecting, whatever we're doing, we want to make sure that for the kids here in Chicago, it is relevant. It is something that they see a point of doing because of what it is to be able to tell them about their community, about their own lives, about science that's occurring here. So again, that's really important for us. That doesn't mean it can't be scaled up. It could be a model that another city adopts, but we really want to focus on what is right for Chicago youth and then show other people what may be right for their youth from that point. But Chicago youth is really our focus. We discovered early on when we started talking about this, actually, I think Dan had pointed this out in one of our early conversations, that what you're talking about is not mapping. You're talking about open science. You're talking about not just that, but data collection in all of its forms, how to get youth engaged in that, and then how to visualize it at the end but it's not just about the mapping, right? And there are a lot of people out there doing this sort of stuff, in open science specifically, so we need to think about it in that sort of context. We've been looking at a lot of this sort of thing. We just put up a few of the logos from a few organizations that are engaged in open science in some way, shape, or form. What we found is that the vast majority of these things are adult or professional focused. And what we're really trying to do is find something that engages teens. So it really kind of grew from that concept. And so we're looking at these sorts of things and trying to figure out how we can engage with them. But it's really about that teen audience. How can we get kids energized, excited, and at least on the track to this sort of thing so they can feel empowered to get engaged in this? So we're really looking at open science in a very broad sort of phrase. David pulled this from a MozFest presentation back in October. Science by anybody for everybody, right? Again, lofty goal, and we'll have it all done by August. That's what I like about Hive. We don't go for anything small. It's always big, right? But we're going to be on the way to that sort of thing, and our goal is to see what we can figure out over the course of the summer. Obviously, citizen science, civic science, science, all of these things engage in that sort of thing, right? So it's a big, open sort of area. I'm going to pause for a second here and pass off to some of my colleagues who are up here to talk a little bit about what we're looking at within citizen science itself and kind of some of the levels of engagement we're thinking about in that, and then we'll get into some of our specific programs. So I think you guys were going to cover this one, right? All right.
You started off, Daniel.
So one of the things that, without going too much into what we're doing, with urban agriculture, aquaponics, and food and local economy, it's all about finding each other. And how do we do that in this 21st century global situation? The concept of citizens as sensors and what is the correct interface for us to find each other. So one of the things we're doing is we're actually using gardening, per se, and we're using aquaponics as an interface, almost like a little widget of sorts. So that is a common language, a common material, a common platform for people to find each other to have a conversation. And we have really, really dynamic conversations that happen pretty much daily. We can't really keep track of them. But it's moving beyond that. And then how do we begin to interpret and analyze what does that really mean? What is the quantitative and qualitative impact of what just happened, especially if it becomes a sequential model that leads into another relationship, that leads into another connection, that leads into another contact, right? All that.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess this slide comes from from Excites, which is Extreme Citizen Science at the University College of London. And it's really looking at these different levels of participation by citizens in the scientific endeavor. And really, I think what we're hopefully trying to get at to achieve is, with our youth, get up really to this sort of top level of extreme citizen science. So a civic science where the youth are defining the problems, doing the data collection and the analysis. So not just providing data in sort of traditional citizen science models.
Yeah, I'm going to give a quick anecdotal example, right? We just came from 96 in Cottage Grove, where we had Dan, who's the industrial design student from Syracuse that's coming in for the summer to do an internship over the summer to basically figure out what he's going to do for his thesis. It's all that. He interfaces with a plumber from the neighborhood who came to us because he wants to interface on aquaponics to do something for the household, but also learn organic gardening for the family. Then both of them act as mentors, working with the high school student who's from Oak Hill Gardens, that's the high school football athlete that's now turned into a business person and wants to try and figure out his own business to become an entrepreneur. So then we have this very dynamic network as they work with the local grandmother from the neighborhood who's teaching them the realities of fruits and vegetables, right? What does it mean? And what do these connections really, really, really mean? And when we all start having Skype calls with Shanghai, Mumbai, Johannesburg, or wherever else, what does that mean, right?
Yeah. So I think we're kind of drawing off of well, two examples that I'm familiar with. One is the Excites at the University College of London, and the Public Lab for Open Science and Technology, which is a really inspiring organization. It's like DIY environmental science, really questions, problems, analysis, all being driven by citizens. So not necessarily a scientist defining the problem for citizens to investigate, but really starting at the base level. And we're trying to take that and apply that to a youth model, I think is where we're headed.
All right, so let me give you, what we're going to do for the next few minutes is there are 4 main organizations that are really heavily engaged in this. There are 3 of us that are Hive members, and then Eve from Freedom Games, which is not formally a Hive member at this point, although I think you guys are hopefully going to be. All right. Whenever there's a Hive program, there has to be at least one Hive member that's part of that. You can always bring in other organizations as well, but at least one Hive member. So the Nature Museum, Sweetwater, and Smart Chicago are parts of Hive, and you'll see some of our other partners that are a part of this as well. What we're going to do is talk a little bit about some of the things we've done and what we're going to be doing this summer related to this concept of mapping, data collection, visualization, so you can get a sense of what we're thinking about piloting this summer over the next few minutes. We'll go through each one of them. If you've got questions about the programs or what we've done so far, feel free to kind of toss in at that point, because we're kind of done with the introductory piece. Once we're done kind of sharing about our programs, we'll then go into a little bit more of some of the other things we've looked at and so forth. But as we talk about the programs, feel free, we'll pause a little bit after each one, ask away if you've got questions. Furrowed brow back there, do you have a question right now? I'm just curious. Right, I can't remember your name, but the green scarf.
Me?
Yeah.
Carmen?
Huh?
I don't have this question.
Okay, good. Rick, you were just looking intently. That's great. That makes me feel good. Just like really looking. All right, it sounds interesting.
No, it seems like what you're doing could be mixed with our program too, sustainable development.
Good, and that's exactly. So you'll see a lot of what we're talking about is pulling it from the environmental science standpoint, primarily because that's what the sorts of things we're doing are, right, with the kids. But we hope that this is something that can be bigger than that at some point. Right. We see this as a jumping off point this summer, and then we'll kind of see what happens, and maybe it gets bigger. We hope so. All right. But we haven't even started yet, so we don't know what it's going to look like. We'll be honest about that too. All right. So I'll stop and turn it over to Dave to get into some of the nitty-gritty of what the Nature Museum has done. We'll go through, again, Sweetwater and Freedom Games and also Smart Chicago as well to kind of get a sense of that. But again, Dave's done with the Nature Museum stuff. If you've got questions specific, feel free to ask.
Yeah. So basically, the Nature Museum does have an After School Matters program this summer, where we're really hoping to employ some of these tools that we're investigating here with the Hive Mapping Cooperative. So I'll talk a little bit about what our plan is for the summer. Some of the preliminary stuff we've done. We've done already a workshop that Carmen was at with After School Matters instructors about digital mapping, just to kind of get a broader view of what different instructors think. But for our summer program, basically it's Teenagers Exploring and Explaining Nature and Science, which stands for TEENS, which has been the name of our high school program for
20 years.
20 years.
It morphs around with the name stays.
Yeah, so this summer, it's a 6-week program. We'll have 30 some odd teens. We'll be with them 4 hours a day, 4 days a week over the course of 6 weeks. And really, we'll be focusing on Lincoln Park, the park, as our unit of study. And so you can kind of think of it as a ecology or environmental field school for high school students. So we're going to be adapting a lot of kind of college level labs down to a high school level. And the way that we envision this is for kind of the first maybe 3.5 weeks, really getting a sense of the Lincoln Park environment, contributing to existing research projects that are out there. So Lindsay from Morton is she's working on a project that we're going to try to contribute to, which is the Regional Trees Initiative, looking at the urban forest composition. So that's an example of one thing we might be doing is characterizing the trees, and while we're out there using tablets for mobile data collection, collecting that data, bringing that data, giving it to existing projects, as well as having a Teens project database that'll be open and shared with whoever else wants to use it as well. So the idea is that they'll be learning these different field methods, different field techniques with existing research projects that are out there. And then for the kind of, I say the last 2.5 weeks of the program, basically designing their own citizen science project based on some of the correlations or relationships they started seeing out in the park. So they'll have their research design, their methods. The idea is that they're low-cost sort of DIY methods. We'll talk about how they're collecting data, and throughout this also visualizing the data that we're collecting in the field.
Just a quick note about the composition of the group of kids. We're working through After School Matters. For those of you who aren't familiar with After School Matters, over 90% of the kids that we're going to work with are required to be CPS students, the vast majority from non-selective schools. So this is not we're not pulling in a group of kids who are already engaged or at a high level of knowledge, right? We have some of those kids, and one of our challenges is going to be we have a wide range of knowledge of kids we're working with. So the kids will be coming from all over the city.
Yeah, so it's a pretty wide range. Tommy, like you said, will be another instructor out there. And we'll be doing things like soil sampling, basically characterizing the plants, animals, soils, water, air throughout Lincoln Park. So, this is kind of our study area right here. The little pin there is where the Nature Museum is. So we have about 1.5 miles going north-south and half a mile going east-west to kind of explore. And there's 6 bodies of water, multiple different types of park types. There's kind of pond edge habitat, formal gardens, baseball fields. So lots of things for them to explore. And the idea is that they learn these basic methods and then are able to apply them to their own research project. Some of the things we've already sort of piloted. We participated in a Chicago Quest externship project that was funded through Hive Chicago, which also included Adler Planetarium, Yolo Kali, and the Art Institute. And they basically rotated through each of these institutions. They were there for about 3 hours, getting a taste of possible things they could do once they are in high school. So they're 8th graders. And so we decided to pilot some of the things that we were thinking of piloting already. So we used an app called EpiCollect, which is a smartphone-based app that also has a web component as well. And what that allows you to do is create your own forms, collect media with that, collect GPS points, and you can do that all offline. So you don't need to use data or have Wi-Fi connection while you're out there in the field. And then you just sync your data when you get back inside. So the youth, kind of worked in groups, collected some of that data. Some of it sort of worked, some of it sort of didn't as we were out there. We found that the app would sometimes crash on iPhones. But the basic idea is we were doing biodiversity sampling, so these hoops here, looking at types of plant diversity within that hoop as a sample method. And also soil sampling as well in 3 different ecosystems across the park. So we looked at our prairie, the parkland, which you see there, and then kind of the pond edge, and comparing those 3 areas. And we learned some things from that. 3 hours is a pretty short time to try to get 38th graders on board and learning how to do that. So some of it turned into trying to light leaves on fire with magnifying glasses, but it was interesting. It was a learning experience. So we do have some maps that were produced from that I can probably share with you guys a little bit later, just to show you what that looks like. The visualization with the EpiCollect app isn't all that great. So a lot of times we'd be pushing that data to Google Fusion tables and then looking at it in Google Earth. So there's multiple steps through the process. So we did that. That was kind of our pre-pilot. And then we also did a After School Matters workshop organized by Jamila. Carmen was there. And that brought together a wide variety of After School Matters instructors, from art to science to sustainable design to dance. And kind of what we did down here was basically I just set up a Google form. So they were filling in like whether or not they had mapping experience before, put in the address of their project location. They answered some other questions like do they like the Cubs or the Sox, do they like deep dish pizza, just to kind of show different things that we could visualize. And we basically just kind of talked about some of these different examples that exist out there. I showed them some of the stuff we had done with Chicago Quest to kind of brainstorm what are some opportunities, what are some challenges. We also used the EpiCollect app, a very basic setup on that. and then showed them some existing examples of youth and community-driven mapping. And so I put up there MIT Lowcast, which does some stuff in Brazil, and then there's Que Pasa Riachuelo. I think you're involved with that, right?
I worked on that.
Yeah, that's our garage lab, right? Cool. So yeah, I got exposed to that. Yeah, I got exposed to that at MouseFest from Mauricio. Yeah. And I showed it to these guys, and they're like, "That is awesome. That's what we want."
They've launched a new version now.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
completely
New. Okay, so yeah, maybe you can bring that one up, because I showed that to them, and everybody really was into those. I mean, I can kind of show some of those real quick. You guys want to see those real quick? Just kind of to see those examples. Okay. So
you're over your 5 minutes.
I am over my 5 minutes. I'll be quick. So here's the UNICEF example. This is MIT Lowcast. You can see it's kind of media, photos, locations, different issues, youth mapping that, and then
that's
the new version, and it's Que Pasa Riachuelo.
Yeah, Que Pasa Riachuelo. What happens to Riachuelo?
Yeah. So this was a really inspiring example for me when I saw this, and inspiring for the rest of these guys when I showed it to them. So some of the things, I'll just wrap up real quick here. Some of the things we identified there as challenges was not having the tech kind of detract from our existing programs. So wanting it to complement and enrich programs and not be something that is creating more issues than benefits. And then also just the challenges of getting outside. Some programs are not allowed to go outside because of safety reasons. Others, students aren't allowed to bring their smartphones. They don't have access to tech. And also, the instructors want to make sure they're comfortable with it as well. But there was definitely a lot of opportunities seen there where they thought kids would want to share their data outside of their programs. That was something that was very appealing, they thought, to the youth instead of just having it internally. So that's something that we're trying to work towards. So I'll stop talking now.
Quick questions related to the programs or things, David. We're going to talk more about specific tools and things later on, and we'll definitely want feedback on that. But just any specifics about what we're trying to do.
Just a super quick question.
Yeah.
Because we're at the OpenScience piece, can you just talk about where you were hosting this? Was open part of what you just described? And if so, like, literally, where did you put stuff?
So,
if there's a short answer, if not, we can wait.
Right. For the Chicago Quest thing, that was not really public. That was within there. It's public now. I mean, you could go and find it if you wanted to, and you could add to it. So it was shared within that 120 students at Chicago Quest, basically.
Yeah. So the question, one of the questions, Gabe, is when we do this summer, where is it as open? One of the things that we put together with Smart Chicago, we'll show it to you at the end. We put together with Smart Chicago did it, let's be honest. They've done it for us, they've been tremendous to work with, is to put up a website, openscience.org, you'll see it a little bit later on, Open Science Cooperative, I can't remember what we call it, we'll look at it in a second. Maybe that will be the place where this goes. That's one of the things we've got to figure out, is because we want the youth to be able to share across programs and engage in this. So that's one of the big questions we got to figure out as we pilot this, is where's all this going to go in a usable format for people. But the stuff we've done so far isn't open.
You ready?
Yeah.
Slide this way, please, sir.
Okay, so Sweetwater Foundation is a 501c3 focused on really resilience and what does it take in order to try, fail, learn, do it again, and find new life in a lot of areas through. We focus on urban agriculture and use aquaponics as a way to really do indoor growing. Aquaponics, if you're not familiar at this point, it is a recirculating water ecosystem where you feed the fish, they eat, they fertilize the water goes to the plants, they filter the water, grow up towards the light, photosynthesis, what have you, filters the water to go back to the fish. It is a great way to engage anybody of all ages on what an ecosystem is and could potentially can be. And also pathways towards biodiversity, STEAM, career pathways, science, technology, engineering, art, we actually say A+, so agriculture, aquaponics, arts and designs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Break that down further and make everything more complex. So it's a great way, it's a great tool. Growing something, hands-on experiential education is probably the best way to teach, especially for the audiences that we're working with. Audiences range from pretty much all over the city of Chicago. Our one site is anchored at 9601 South Cottage, which is like intersection of Burnside, Chatham, Roseland Pullman. We have another site that's in Inglewood. We have another series of partners across North Lawndale, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In terms of the structure, the only way to call it is chaotic. It's a term. Look it up. D. Hock, the founder of Visa, termed this term. Chaotic is the balance of chaos and order. And he wanted Visa to be the world's largest co-op back then, and it turned into something else. So chaotic meaning we have this asset-based chaotic development sequential model. As things come at us, we adapt and we try and figure it out. We have 12 interns over the summer that range. They're high school interns from Fenger, Simeon, Chicago High School for Agricultural Sciences, Lindblom Math and Science, et cetera, et cetera. They're coming from Calumet is My Backyard program. We're coming from Build On. They're coming from U.S. Department of Education is giving us some funds in order to get some kids. So we have a very dynamic network of folks. We have people from the neighborhood. Now, several years ago, we were honored and thrilled to win a digital media and learning competition with MacArthur and Mozilla Foundation. So our concept was to game and badge aquaponics. And how do you do that? You have to game and figure out how do you do stuff symbiotically, concurrently. So you can't do a system without fish, plants, water, design, and construction, or design and build. So there are ways to show that within water, if you're learning the basics of how to do water chemistry, without saying you're doing water chemistry, you're still learning the basics of doing water chemistry. How do you test for that, and why is that necessary for the health of your fish? How can you do any of that without hydrology, and how can you do any of that without an actual system that has mechanics that work? How do you know that with the gallons per hour, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So we can come back to that slide, but fish, plants, water, design and build are the 4 categories, and there's certain levels of competency and mentorship and peer evaluation is also we're trying to build into that. So you can come in as a novice, you're told what to do, you're a junior level. Once you have the basic skills, this is the apprenticeship model, basically. Just bring the apprenticeship back. That's all we're trying to do. You graduate from a junior into a senior level, and in the process of becoming a senior level, you gain information, you have your own ideas, you're not just regurgitating, you're actually sharing your ideas, you have a mentor, and then you graduate to a journeyman, man or woman, level. And at that point, you've been with a year or 2 years, you're ready to travel, experience more, you're starting to really take leadership, and then on your way on to mastery. So we're doing, this was an experiment we did with the Chicago Summer of Learning. We're also part of the Chicago Cities of Learning experience, part of the Hive piece. So just to show you who our audience is, it's everybody, right? Community partners, educators, employers, students, hobbyists, journalists, professionals, journeyman, people that are trying to figure out what their career pathways are in this emerging industry. It's a really interesting ecosystem of users, and a lot of trial and error and best practices, like how do you know what is the most appropriate light in order to use in an indoor setting in your kitchen, if you're south-facing versus east-facing versus what's your temperature, et cetera, et cetera. And then how do you find each other, share your experiences of what worked, what pumped, share it with the next person. What kind of fish did you use? So a snapshot of some of our experiences. We have a really, really diverse network of users, and we pride ourselves on that, just like bacteria and mycelia. We're trying to be more like mycelia. The types of activities are, you need to do field notes, you need to do some type of reflexive journal, you need to do some kind of methodological log, you need to do some type of photo, video. How do you process all the information, present your best foot forward, know how to tell your own story, don't rely on other people to tell your story. So it takes the form of smartphones, photos, digital video, it takes sketches, any type of way that you can find your way stumbling forward. And your results are products. What do you do with it? 3D models from SketchUp, Inventor, AutoCAD, 3D Max, Rhino. How does that lead into a new type of product design? How does that lead into an Arduino, a Raspberry Pi experience that can then become an interface and then you can share information? And then how do you, now that you've figured out some lessons learned, share that responsibly as a global citizen so you can lift other people up while you're now finding your career pathway? Questions?
So to share with you guys really quickly, we got connected up with Sweetwater as part of this whole thing, basically through the water piece, right? We knew we were doing some water quality data collection. You guys have already been doing that,
right,
with your kids. And so it seemed like, okay, well, that's a basis there. We both know we're collecting some similar types of data. Maybe there's a way to kind of get our kids connected to one another and build from that. We'll see how well we can get that to work this summer, but that was kind of, I think, the genesis piece of that, knowing that we were both doing some similar work in one area of environmental science. And we both had a real passion about getting these kids involved.
Well, yeah, like the water piece, just to build off of that, is, you know, we have water, that people take water for granted all the time. But we're finding students asking really great questions, like, I live by Midway. My pH in my water is 8.2. Why is that? And I balanced my system and it went back down to 7.2 or 7.4, and it all of a sudden went back up to 8.2, and I'm watching the effects of the system. Can somebody help me out? And then they're sharing it with other folks on the other side of town and say, that's really weird, well, mine's at 6 point something. And then all of a sudden they're also starting to say, well, what kind of plants are you growing? What kind of fish do you have? What's in the biodiversity of your system? Then they're starting to say, are you using soil or are you not using soil? Which then led us to another piece. And we have another site that we're doing urban ag supported by water off the hydrant, that we're having to try and figure out, can that one hydrant support an entire 2-acre site? How much water are we using? What's the soil? What can we grow, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
My basic question was, how long does it take for you to take a student to go from the sketch to smartphone data collection to a product, like a design build, please?
So this is one of the things that we've had the fortune of experimenting and trying and error, you know, being wrong to figure out how to get right. We have a range of different designs. So they go from 5-gallon, 10-gallon, 20-gallon, 30-gallon, 40-gallon, 50-gallon, 100-gallon, 250, et cetera, et cetera. So the 5-gallon, the 10-gallon system, 45-minute installation process with about $35. So that if you have a drill and you have a 15/16 drill bit and you can know how to drill straight, and you want to try and go into a Tupperware set, and you go to Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, wherever, you can get your Tupperware from Target, you can get it from wherever, right? Just to know how to begin to understand what a grow bed is, you drill it, you thread it, you can go hack a Coke bottle or water bottle and learn how to create a bell siphon so it does an ebb and flow system in the grow bed. And as long as you have a fish tank or you can create a fish tank, you got a system. Now you have to, the trick is keeping it alive. That's when you get badged.
Question way back there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you have multiple centers. Are they all similarly equipped, or are they different on purpose to try different things?
We're really moving at the speed of life. There's really no, the centers, the spaces, it all depends on the audience that we're working with. That's the challenge. The resources are very different. Yeah.
Right. So there's a question back there.
I had a question. You mentioned documentation, reflective journaling,
Yep.
et cetera, but also moving at the speed of light, right? And I'm sure your participants feel like that too. So how do you balance that, like the need to document and teaching them how to do that with the work?
We have a team of, we have agreed to act like a team of athletes and all be coaches. So if we spot check and say, hey, you know, are you taking a picture? If somebody else notices within the network that there's a teaching moment there, first ask the question, do you know what you're doing? Secondly, if you don't know if you don't know, make sure you take a picture, other people take a picture. What's the best way you can learn, et cetera, et cetera. We have it depends on the team. You can't do this without the team.
Well, I sorry, just to be curmudgeon here for a second, but I mean, to me, this sounds more like an academic pursuit rather than sports pursuit, to be honest. What you described about plant growth was why one of my graduate school roommates started in plant biology and why she got a PhD in horticulture. And I mean, that's, maybe if you could focus more on that and then tracking the kids who actually matriculating programs to do research and stuff.
I mean, we have students that aren't going to college. We have students that dropped out of high school.
So why don't you focus on having those kids go back into school and progress?
Because they're working with the PhD students in hopes that they will go back to college, right? Sometimes, yeah. I'll let Dan talk about that later.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things that's interesting about all of this sort of thing, and one of the reasons, when we got introduced to Emmanuel on this, is this access piece is a challenge for a lot of these kids, and kids who haven't had introduction to any of this until late into their high school career when they get to these guys. So, we hope that we'll see them going on to this sort of thing, but there's some real basics, regardless of any of the rest of this, that we think that we can get across to all these guys. I don't know. It's a long conversation. We're going to do that, but I'm happy to have it. But I want to make sure that we've got some time for some of the other stuff that's going on with this tonight. Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I want to ask. So you mentioned you work with a wide range of kids. How do you guys navigate around children with learning disabilities and combining them with PhD?
And that's a great question. So I was going to bring up an example of, we have a couple of students that can't really spell. And we found that out by the journals. We asked them to do the journals. There was a reluctancy to do the journals. There was more of an inclination towards doing the photo and documentation, and then we pair them up with folks. And then we get over the fear of, how do I spell? And then you can get over the fear of, I didn't learn algebra properly. And you have to create that environment first where they feel comfortable. Jackie knows exactly what I'm talking about. We haven't even had a chance to talk a lot, but I would actually defer to the expert.
Yeah.
To talk about that. All right.
Yeah, there's a person, if you don't know her, you should get to know her.
Yeah.
Fabulous work with robotics, especially.
So it is about creating the atmosphere first and foremost that they feel comfortable enough to not worry about making a mistake. Right.
Okay, so we get a couple other groups to go through, and then we officially, they kick us out of the 8, Dan? Is that the plan? Yeah. Okay. All right. But for those of you who are planning on leaving at 8, we don't want to keep you here later than that if you need to go at 8. And I do want some time for more conversation. The people who are trying to put some structure around all this craziness that you're hearing from us so far, and then we'll go back to add some more into that with Even Freedom Games, is Smart Chicago, right? So Kyla will share a little bit about Smart Chicago and what they're doing as part of this, and then we'll do one more sense of where we're piloting and programming, and then we'll start talking a bit more about tools.
I want to say one last thing. The byproduct is food. That's the most important thing. I forgot to say that. Like, the food goes to be eaten or go to market. So that's the thing that keeps everybody level.
So I thought I was well on my way to becoming a master in aquaponics until he said the plants had to live. And not so good in that area. So we'll stick to this Smart Chicago Collaborative stuff. Smart Chicago Collaborative is a civic organization dedicated and designed to improve the lives of Chicagoans using technology. Big task. It's 3 of us on staff, Dan, myself, and Sonia, and so we have a lot of work to do. We're guided by 4 principles. Technology, meaning anything and everything that we do is about technology focused. Open, we are very transparent. We want to use open technology, open software, open processes. Part of this whole entire team that's up here is a part of an open process because we've opened up ourselves, we've opened up our minds, we've opened up our programs and our evaluation tools, and we're trying to create something that's bigger than ourselves, and that is exactly what Smart Chicago is about. We're about everyone. We want everyone to have everything as it relates to technology, skills, access, data. We want everyone to have the best opportunity to benefit from a technology-based program, a technology-based service, a technology-based educational program, whatever the case may be. We're all about everyone. Our middle name is Chicago. So we are about Chicago. We do have lots of things going on across the state, across the county, and then even internationally. But we are focused on Chicago, and we talked about that earlier in our presentation, that we really want to make a positive impact with our Chicago residents and be successful there. Again, our focus is on increasing access to the internet, improving skills for using the internet, and developing meaningful products from data. Our funding partners are the City of Chicago, the MacArthur Foundation, and the Chicago Community Trust, which is where you guys are sitting, and they so graciously offer a space every month for these open gov meetings, and Smart Chicago provides a delicious pre-dinner for us when we're in here, so we definitely appreciate that. We work on a lot of different projects. If you go to smartchicagocollaborative.org, you can look at everything that we're up to. We're very current on our stuff. We live stream everything. There's videos. Dan takes photos of everybody, so don't be surprised if you show up on it tomorrow. We have a program called Connect Chicago, which is basically a open public-facing platform that connects you to any place in the city of Chicago that offers free computers. We have a health-based product called the Chicago Health Atlas, which basically provides a data visualization of health information and how to improve your health in your particular community. Dan referenced the Civic Summer Program, which is providing an open educational curriculum to students to let people know that there's other things that you can do as careers outside of being a data programmer. There's lots of folks who are making billions of dollars just messing around on the internet. Unfortunately, that's not right. We have the Chicago School of Data, which is a citywide process where we're trying to gather the stakeholders and speak some life into how we use data for the public good. And Matt Gee is here and can speak a little bit more about that. Again, if you want to know what we're doing, just go to our website and query under projects. One of the other things that we do a lot of is provide technical assistance to other organizations. We have a Amazon Web Service that we host products on. We do office hours at 1871. We're constantly going out and speaking and talking to everyone because we want to make sure that everyone has access to the best technology that we are aware of and beyond. And so we got involved in this process because these brilliant people to the left of me were saying they just didn't feel like they had necessarily the best technical opinion about what would be the best mapping project or product. And so we said, hey, we can offer some assistance in that program, and we're all part of Hive, and that's how Smart Chicago is sitting at the table. And we've kind of provided not only the technical assistance, but really want to support this entire cooperative so that we can focus on not only this project, which is the great leaping point, but this whole open science movement for youth that we're very excited about.
Question for you guys while we pass this along to Eve, who's going to be doing a little bit of information on hers. Oh, the mouse as well? Okay. So Eve's about to start up there. Again, the non-Hive partners can be part of these grants as well, and we connected up with Eve very close to the, I was going to say to the eve of presenting the grant. Anyway, okay, so after 7 o'clock. But so Freedom Games gave us another opportunity of a different type of organization doing things as well. Another way that we might be able to pilot and play with some of this stuff this summer, just to throw some stuff up on the wall and see what sticks. So I'll let Eve talk more about what Freedom Games is doing.
Sure. I'm going to talk a little bit about our Planet Lab initiative, which is to build a citizen science network for youth that interfaces with school-based learning and across out-of-school time learning as well. So first, to start out, I want to share a short personal story. I was born a few blocks away from this. It's Niagara Falls, New York, and in 1977, the year I was born, citizen scientists and residents discovered this under the Love Canal site. It's 22,000 tons of toxic waste that were dumped by the Hooker Chemical Company, which folded, and the land was sold for $1 to the city of Niagara. It soon became the site of working class housing and a school. So like lots of kids in the area, my neighbor Mandy had a birth-defected hand. And that was due to a trick of dioxins, DNA, and the public policy milieu that judged the worth of land and people as lower than the worth of Cold War napalm. The region was actually a big war chemicals producer. So my first school memory is this. It was first grade, and I was supposed to be practicing 2 + 10 and 5 + 6, but instead I was staring out the window. I heard a loud crack on my desk, and it was Mrs. Colucci who had snuck up behind me and wrapped her ruler on the desk, and she said, "Why aren't you doing the board work?" And I started to cry. Now, if I was a tougher kid, I would have told her that this was really on my mind. "Mrs. Colucci, I'm having a complex geospatial thought about how buried toxins are leached through the water table to cause genetic mutations in kids and ducks. And I'm also wondering why we kids are stuck in this cubicle schoolroom studying a Cartesian number line while the willow tree outside the window is growing in slow, divine proportion spirals, producing branches that sway flexibly in a multi-vector breeze." This sad story is all to make a point that the thought tools that we teach in school are not flexible enough to solve the problems that kids themselves really want to answer, and I think that that ties in so well with the presentations made. So what would it be like if every kid living near a pet coke pile or a waste dump had the opportunity to map, not just add or subtract? And that's really the question that I think is driving us. So 30 years later, fast forward, and I have a wonderful opportunity to co-found an education organization that's dedicated to empowering youth leaders through design. And so what we did, we founded last summer, and we worked with over 500 students, STEM educators, and program leaders in order to co-design a different approach to science education that could involve youth in connecting between the context of their community and the school. So what we did was we asked hundreds of teens to do action research maps of the neighborhoods surrounding their school sites, and we asked what are the assets for STEM education that are within 3 blocks of your school, and if you were to found and teach a science, what would that science be? So this example, Darrell Jones on the left, he identified an abandoned gas station, and he decided that he would like to craft the science of rebuildology, or adaptive reuse architecture. So then it became our design question to ask, okay, what would the tools be that would enable every teacher in CPS to quickly deploy or develop a rebuildology course in order to integrate what kids are experiencing in their neighborhood in the school-based context. So I'm going to share a short video about the design of, about the Planet Lab design, which we're building now and we hope to deploy for next school year. Then I'll talk a little bit about mapping. So I think the sound might be a little bit... Oh, it's not right. So just real quick, this project, which started with 500 teens and teachers, just recently won the City of Chicago Clean Web Challenge, a series of 4 hackathons leading to a playoff, and we get to present to the mayor next month.
Congrats.
For lots of kids, science class equals boring class. They might have big ideas about what they want to do when they grow up, but right now they're stuck learning from bulky textbooks that fail to connect with big imaginations. Over 60% of U.S. elementary educators say they feel unprepared to teach science, and this makes a big problem. While young kids are curious about the world around them, only 1 out of 5 high school seniors can do science at their grade level. To build 21st century economic opportunities, we need every kid to use their best creative talents. We need to nurture the innovation generation, youth who feel ready to solve the world's toughest problems together. Planet Lab is a fun citizen science network designed for hands-on learning. We help students master the spheres of science as they play a social game. Kids sign on to Planet Lab to discover exciting missions happening all around them. Students and teachers can find missions based on grade level standards, time to task, materials, even the season of the year. As they take on new missions, kids connect with engaging projects in a peer learning community. And as they complete their missions, they make meaningful contributions to science, community health, and environmental sustainability. And they earn social gaming rewards that reveal career pathways in research and innovation. As learners advance in Planet Lab, they open up new opportunities for peer learning and collaboration with global youth. Planet Lab's content is developed in partnership with expert teachers and research institutions, and is aligned to literacy, math, and science standards. We connect kids and classrooms to important issues in their own neighborhoods and around the world. What would it be like if every kid, every teacher, and classroom had access to the world's best science learning content and hands-on projects linked to a vibrant learning community? Right now, our team is building the first version of Planet Lab. We want to help Chicago Public Schools use their gardens and playgrounds as learning tools. Soon, we'll have a full range of STEM activity content and opportunities for every kid to have fun where they learn. So let's build Planet Lab together and invite every kid to learn the world.
So, like I said, our design objective is really how can we take what's happening in citizen science and tie it to the school learning context. And a big barrier that we identified is that over 60% of K-8 educators report that they feel unprepared to teach science. And at the same time, our emphasis on literacy and math through the Common Core state standards and through high-stakes testing means that it's difficult for teachers to know how to align project-based learning with experience in the classrooms. Oops, sorry, how do I go back?
The present.
To the present, okay. So our task as part of the Hive Mapping Cooperative is to support learning in over 400, we have 400 learning gardens in CPS. About half of them are used regularly and get planted. The other half are often weeds. So we're trying to figure out how we can solve that problem and make those really vibrant learning tools. And so first we were going to do a pollinator mapping project, but then we found out that we could collaborate with an international project on bee mapping. So one of our projects is going to be working with our partners at Green Corps to hack the bee map and figure out how we can shift that data onto a school-focused platform. And we're also going to be working with Green Corps youth to deploy the EpiCollect system. We'll do a sort of human geography project looking both at action research map, looking at community needs, a community needs assessment, as well as the impact of Green Corps' program. Green Corps it's going to train over 900 teens in sustainable jobs this summer at 24 partner sites. So we're excited to see how the mapping will actually help foster collaboration between those sites. Yeah, that's all.
All right. So I'll take that to basic play. Questions for Eve on that? All right. So Kyla, if you wouldn't mind, I want to click to the next screen. I think one of the things we have to figure out is, okay, so we're going to give you a whole list of lots of stuff going on, but what we're trying to figure out here when we do this is what are we going to map with? I mean, there are tons of things out there. So one of the things Smart Chicago did recently is gave us 3 levels of mapping, 3 things that we may want to take a look at as the things that we might want to pilot or play with over the course of the summer. And so that is what's up here. Kyla, if you want to share a little bit about why you guys thought those would be the 3 that we might want to play with.
Right. Well, we knew that we weren't going to be able to come up with a one technology solution for every person, every child. People have different learning styles, and all of the members on the panel to the left of me can attest that in their programming they have whiz kids that come with lots of technology knowledge that even blows them away sometimes. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to make sure that we could capture the educational spirit of all levels of youth. And so our entry-level tool that we are recommending is BatchGeo, which is it's like the Kyla function of mapping tools. It's like drag it, drop it, and it becomes a map. So for that entry-level student and those who are even still trying to familiarize themselves with knocking around on the internet, that is one of the things that we're recommending. For more intermediate learners, and especially because we have a lot of interesting data collection things that need to be kind of layered, our intermediate tool is Google Fusion Tables and Google Maps. And so we're recommending that as the best mapping tool for youth. on the intermediate level. And if these kids are really adept at messing around with Google, so it may just be about organizing that and teaching them some formality to labeling columns and things like that. But we feel like for those intermediate students, this would be a good option. For the advanced, we kind of went back and forth on what would be the advanced best option. We had like the thing that we all love, which costs $1 gazillion, which violates our principles of open. So we decided that we were going to go with QGIS, but then we've had some late entries of interest with Mapbox and TileMill, and so we are still not quite sure we're going to go with QGIS, but that's one of the reasons why we wanted to come before this audience, because we know that there are some great scientists and some great data technical geniuses out there, and we would love to hear some feedback on what you think would be a great advanced product for our youth that's going to be able to be replicated. That's the other thing. Again, it's not just about our groups here. We want to pass this on not only to the Hive network, but really kind of create a toolkit, if you will, for best practices on teaching young adults, teenagers mapping in school. So those are our recommendations Now, mind you, again, we're 3 meetings in.
3 or 4, yeah, and we're going to start playing around quickly.
Exactly. So, yeah, these are our initial recommendations.
Yeah, so let me just, so again, to put it in context, we know there are a lot of things out there, right? Other visualization tools that we have looked at, right? Most of them a little bit more difficult probably to work with, but you'll see a few of the fine logos of these groups up here. I don't know if there's anything specific.
Yeah, and I mean, these ones are more, not necessarily for mapping. There's other types of visualization tools that are open source that we haven't really investigated. I mean, the thing is, there's like really no shortage of open source GIS platforms that are out there. The big challenge we ran into is like, how do we even get these things up and running? How do we use them? Like, which one do we want to invest our time in trying to figure out how to manipulate? I mean, we have experience with ArcGIS. I have experience with ArcGIS. But with these other ones, no, and I don't really know how to get those up, and that's why we have Smart Chicago here to kind of, and any feedback you guys can provide as well. But these are just some other ones, because it isn't just about maps. There's these other visualization tools.
Right. One of the really cool things, and I was going to put the open source kind of data collection tools that we're already to some extent familiar with or played with in some ways. One of the things that the Manuals group has been doing, you guys take pictures of everything.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there are so many photos up there, and that's so data rich. And how do we use that Instagram, Twitter stuff that you guys are doing, and find a way to visualize this in a way that might make sense to other people or show the experience?
One of the reasons why we are so OCD about taking pictures. I have a personal passion about taking pictures about everything, but if you're not able to translate what your experience is on paper, or it's easier to take a picture and then come back to it and reflect on it. And a lot, you know, it's a great tool for storytelling right at our fingertips, and most people don't know what it means. The other issue is that we keep getting challenged all the time. How do you prove that your kids are learning? If their test scores suck, what's your evidence? Yeah. And we have to. There's this tension that we all experience of saying, well, all right, listen to this student speak. Look at where they came from 3 months ago. Yeah, we're not going to reflect the test scores that quickly. But there's all of this other evidence. So what are the proper metrics in order to indicate that this real learning is happening? So that's one reason why we're doing it, hoping that you all will find us and help us out. We haven't figured it out yet. We just have tera drives of freaking footage and stuff. But yeah,
you guys have a lot of really cool images.
Yeah.
Anything else to add on this stuff from you guys?
There's a bunch of questions back there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Not for questions, just throwing out some other options. So one on the more advanced but still accessible research tools. Boundless has a really nice open GeoSuite.
Boundless.
That has a collaboration, a really nice integration of a series of open source research tools to allow for analysis. And it's a one-button download. It's good for it. Also, there's a great group called Simplicity that has been doing
what was that one?
Simplicity, and they have a product called Urban Canvas that is an open tool specifically for city visualization. So any projects that are city, and it's done by a really great set of folks out of the University of California, Berkeley. But it's a really, really great, very accessible, simple to use, really, really impressive 3D visualization tool.
Did you say Synthicity?
Yeah, yeah. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Okay.
Synthicity.
Somebody else had a hand up or something back there.
Are you guys doing any social network mapping? Or is it all geo at this point?
I think the conversation has come up about that. Emmanuel will be the guy here. We're
So I'm also obsessed with the concept of sociograms.
Yeah.
So we've been trying to find the proper equipment and the or software or whatever that can speak the sociogram world language and how to model the ecosystem as it evolves, as the networks and connections happen and then realizations happen and critical connections happen on stuff, but have been at a loss. Students love Instagram. What do we do with it? We also have COPPA compliance issues. We can't, after over the age of 13, you know, that's a whole other world of complication. But
Because Daphne is a really good open source social network mapping. It can get really complicated, but I think I had never seen it before. I figured out how to make a really basic map using like an Excel, where you just tell what nodes are connected with really simple ones and zeros. You can incorporate it does some really neat stuff that the kids might do. It has a wow factor to it, so they might get into it.
How do you spell that?
GEPHI.
what's cool about it is that when we have a student that doesn't really break out of their neighborhood, and then they look up and they realize, wait a second, I'm way beyond just my neighborhood. I'm outside the city, and I didn't realize that. You know, that's what we needed the graphics to show.
I'm just going to put one more here while we're answering questions. We'll take feedback in a second. Just to let you guys know, so the question Gabe, not over there now, but Gabe asked a question earlier about, so how are you sharing this? Where is this all going? Where's it going to be open? Dan and Kyle and these guys put together for us. We've got the OpenScienceCoop.org website that we've got as a placeholder. We're starting to build some things out there. This may be the place where that stuff goes. We're trying to figure out exactly, you know, we've got all these different platforms and things going on here. How are we going to get them to interconnect? Where's all this stuff going to be housed? We've got a framework of that out here that we're going to start building out and adding information about the project as we go here. This may be the place where that stuff goes as we figure out how best to share this across all our different organizations. So I'm putting that up while we have this conversation. And there were a bunch of hands up, so I'm sorry if I cut you guys off.
And just a note on this, again, you know, we are consumers and contributors of data. So even though we are kind of like the, you know, folks that are initially involved in this piece, we are looking for full participation in this Open Science Cooperative. We need information, we need ideas, we need blog posts. We really want to do a good job of being very holistic in our considerations of everything science and open as it pertains to youth in the city of Chicago. So don't feel that because your thing isn't quite mapping, but you may have some other cool science thing that's open related. We want to hear about that. And you know, we have our foci with our deliverables for Hive. Where's Robert at? We're going to do our deliverables.
Is Robert here?
For Hive.
Robert.
But you know, this really is in its implementation is really what Hive wanted us to do, was to take this and you know, forge forward with a larger scope. And so we really need folks around the table and beyond. Please tell people about this meeting. They can watch the live stream on the Smart Chicago Collaborative website. And we want questions, and we want, again, inquiries, and you know, let's have some conversations about how we can make this be really, really dynamic. And someone said when we talked about this at our first meeting that this was the thing that was going to win us a Nobel Peace Prize. So if you own that train, come on with it.
Again, organizations in the Hive think so. Karen, I know you had a hand up. I don't know who else did.
So I had a comment for Emmanuel, because the thing you said about the photos and capturing students' learning and evidence they're learning there really resonated with something we've been working on with badging too. So both with the CSTEMD project, which a bunch of us are on, and also at the last Maker Party, the Chicago City of Learning Maker Party, we were doing badging, and we have a lot of emphasis on artifact and evidence badges. So like the anecdote I've been using for it is actually based on what Jackie was doing there. So she had this really cool project. What we were doing was
any kid who made something and then we took a picture of it, or at one of the stations they took a picture of it, then they got a maker badge. But they also were collecting the evidence badges with their pictures. So Jackie had this cool robotics project where it was just straws and string, but kids could make a little robotic hand where they pulled on the strings and the hand opened and closed. And so a bunch of the kids who came by our table, at least, to get their picture taken, it was because they had this. And I couldn't help but imagine, like, if one of these kids who's, like 7 years old, standing there with a big smile and their robotic hand, that picture and that badge would be worth so much, like, later when they're applying for internships, like at the Adler or something, and saying they're interested in robotics, or even if they're applying to grad school, to be able to have, like, this whole timeline showing the evidence of their learning, and that in some ways, like, the pictures that you're collecting and that evidence of learning, I think will gain in value over time, whereas certificate that they get for water ecology, like, it's really nice, but it's not going to have the same kind of value. So, like, at least in terms of thinking about badging systems, I think it's worth thinking about those photos and the evidence of your learning as the thing that's really valuable, and that'll be valuable to the kids long into time.
It's an inherent tension in the whole pedagogical structure, whatever we want to talk about, the academic institutions. It's like the youth love their story and their photo. The university wants to know the other piece. And it's like we're trying to figure, how do we balance that?
At least with career stuff. So, like, there's always this argument, so, like, when you're applying for a job, you get eliminated from a job by a computer program if you don't have certain skills.
Right.
So you have to get past that barrier of having the skills documented, so that, but you don't get a job for having skills.
Right.
You get a job for having a story about why you fit into that company and why you contribute.
Jackie had her hand up too.
So in the area, on the question of access, I have sort of a question and an offer. So I
have a counter offer already, but go ahead.
But if I can do either, I have to make a comment.
Okay.
In order to really identify the proper tools, we need to understand what question you're trying to answer. And I don't think I've heard that yet, and that's okay. I know it's early, but I know my question, I won't answer. So therefore, I have some. That's my question and comment comes from. There are a lot of kids. No, there are a number of kids who have amazing opportunities, and there are many, many more who have none. And a lot of times, new programs come up, and those amazing kids get even more opportunities. And those who are out are still left out. And the reason it happens is not intentional in most cases. It's because of lack of information. So I'm part of a transportation working group. Because we do understand that everything can't be everywhere, but everybody can be everywhere to solve that problem.
Right.
One of the things that we're doing is we're trying to map where kids are not coming from. So it's one thing to identify who's
That's great.
It's one thing to identify who we're reaching, but we need to reach those we're not reaching to understand why we're not reaching them.
Yep. Yeah.
So what I'd like to offer, my question is, can we have access to your data as you scan it? I don't care how inaccurate it is, because then we can use that as some sample data to play with our own mapping.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's what our intention is that all of our data is going to be live as it's being collected, both for our project, for their project. Like, it's going to be out there. So
yeah, it'll probably be out there in a very messy form when it first starts.
And if other kids want to pick up, if other researchers want to pick up on it, contribute, study it, it's there. And I've been telling all the kids I've been interviewing, like, this is what we're doing. It's going to be up there. It's going to live beyond the summer.
So awesome.
Yeah. So it'll be there.
That's the exact answer I wanted to hear. So the offer is that I'd like to be able to overlay our transportation data over your data you're collecting, whatever the question you're answering. So we can answer that in this program, where are the kids not? Where are they not? Not where are they coming from, where are they not?
Yeah.
And this probably requires a different conversation later, but we're addressing kids who are 14 and over to avoid the public issues, but we therefore need to share at least some minimal location data on our kids. So I'd like to talk to whoever it is, the right person to get that conversation started, so that we can do that over the summer. Because the transportation working group is currently working on ways to map out where the kids are not, so that we can figure out a way to try to increase access to multiple programs.
So the counter offer is we have 15,000 square feet of warehouse space in a shoe warehouse that you can display what you find.
Not a problem.
Everywhere.
What we intend to do is to actually create a portable visualization that we can take from event to event.
Fantastic.
So therefore, you should be contributing to our events so that your data is included.
Fantastic.
So Jackie, you said the question we're trying to answer, and what we're trying, access is a big issue for us, and so like we could just do ArcGIS and do that with a group of kids who already have a certain knowledge base and and then that's it. What we're trying to figure out is are there tools, are there ways that we can, tools that are useful enough that it's not just, again, putting pinpoints on a map, but can we find things that we can then share with people at the end of this to say, look, if you want to get your kids engaged in this sort of thing, here's a really introductory way to do it that is meaningful, right? It's not just, okay, here are your locations and here's some cool pinpoints on a map, but we're just trying to figure out if that exists, or can we create it, or because I think access is the huge piece, right? What you described at the beginning there is exactly what we're trying to avoid. And so we're hoping that the group of kids that we've got this summer, because again, part of it's forced through After School Matters, we have certain types of kids coming in, that will have a wide range enough to be able to figure that out. Okay, you know what we're working with here isn't going to work. So if nothing else, although I think we'll have more to report than that, we'll be able to say these things aren't working, and what's our next step to figure out what will work.
And that's fine. And the request for the data is not to analyze what you're doing.
Oh, I know that.
We need test data to make sure we have our processes working.
You want intersections?
We have an issue with this all the time.
Yeah.
I work with lots of city programs and we're really interested in exactly what data so tell us the youth they're involved in each program, where they're coming from, and where they go to. Is that correct?
So yes, okay. In a nutshell, because we're talking about after school as well, we're saying at the point of the program, what zip code basically where you come from, what zip code are you headed to? Then all the kind of thing.
Let's just do it. So here's the deal. Everybody gets freaked out about this, endlessly, right? Because everybody talks about it theoretically, and nobody actually does it. So let's just make a decision.
I'm ready.
Here among us, that we're going to just publish our data or give it to and by zip code, it just seems completely reasonable.
So
everybody wants somebody else's data, but nobody's willing to publish their own data.
So one thing
everybody wants to get something from someone else. Everybody wants the CPS data. Everybody wants, if I only had this data, if the city only published this data, and we just have to decide, because what you're asking for is completely in our control. We know where the youth are coming from. Should we just give zip codes of where they're from, and zip codes of where they're at, and based on a weekly things that I know some of the programs travel. Let's just do that and publish it here, and it'll be a start.
So we have 3 years, maybe 4, of zip codes and intersections.
Okay.
Where?
Hard copy. However, it's not all is hard copy, but the last 2 years is being inputted into spreadsheets and what have you.
The international side you've been putting in the spreadsheet.
Actually, one of the individuals right next to you started doing that process.
Yeah, but we have to do it. Just decide to do it. No biggie. Let's do it.
Okay, so in the spirit of let's do it, why don't I put together some discrete data points, put away, and try to at least find an identified place to store them on this website and a format so people just throw it in.
Cool.
And who's going to join me on that effort? So it's not a one-sided effort.
Yeah.
It'd be great to
get all of that.
Who you got?
Can you clarify all on ASM thing?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's like,
Who are you? You know what I mean? In all seriousness.
Yeah, no, it's through UFC, but we worked it out with ASM to get the data. We just need to get ASM to agree to zip code level aggregation of the work.
So here's the thing, aggregated data is fun for statisticians. But we need to know that on a Thursday, that 3 kids come from this zip code, going to that zip code, but those 3 kids were different places. It's not as useful to know that we have kids in 99% of the zip codes.
Right.
We need to find travel patterns, and we understand that we need to have the data aggregated in some level. That's why I want to start by identifying the level of detail that we need. I want to keep it anonymous so that we can get past all the privacy issues. But at some point, we need to be able to have something a little bit more specific, just in totals. However, the fact that we don't know what it is shouldn't stop us from getting started. So what is your name?
Matt.
Matt? Okay, at the end of the meeting, let's get together, and Dan, I don't know.
And in the spirit, and I appreciate that, but let's take it back one more step. You do not own that data. So there's a whole process around it. So you own that data. This is what we're actually, that's all great, and we should keep going with that. In all seriousness, we need to just break it down tighter. The people who have gotten in front of a kid and said, where do you live, and they're paid for it, they're responsible for it. That's who can do it. When you start talking about institutions and brokering data and getting an MOU, everything falls apart. We're not talking about that right now. We're talking about program to program, person to person. When he goes to sleep tonight, this data that he's talking about is going to be a few yards away, right?
Yes.
This is what we're talking about. This is where we can look each other in the eye and say, yes, we're going to do that. And everything else is good, and we should all work towards that. But we're talking about in our possession. Yes. Person to person. You know
Okay,
what I
so
mean?
somebody in the back here has been wanting to say something for a while. So.
Yep.
My name is Amari again. So I had a question about, so the students do this during the program.
Right.
There's like the summer,
Uh-huh.
and then fall kicks off.
Right.
Are you tracking any way that the kids are still using any of these tools, or do they just use it during the program and that's it?
We're year round.
Okay, well, for the program.
For the
then-
summer program, we haven't really thought about that. I mean, I suppose we could have them have usernames or something like that, but we haven't really dropped through that yet. Basically, we've just been telling them that that data is available if you want to continue studying it, if you want to expand your study area beyond Lincoln Park, if you want to collect samples in your neighborhood, in other parks, compare whatever, the turtles in different ponds, you can do that, if that's the project you design.
Right. Anecdotally, a couple of the kids who've come in for interviews have mentioned wanting to go on with that, but it's all anecdotal at this point. But yeah, I think the concept of finding a way to do
I
that.
think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
That was, and Rob, I used to think, I mean, that's authentic assessment, right?
Yeah.
It's like, so if there was a way in the future to sort of build in Instagram and figure out,
Yep.
like, right? I mean, that's what it would be, sort of like that type of mining. It would be an authentic assessment of learning, right? I mean, that's the real deal. So
Yeah.
you keep going with it. And I think social media provides an opportunity to do so.
And I guess we'll know if data is being added to it as well.
Well, along those lines, you could like just extend your gamification of badges to certain applications, like before Christmas vacation or whatever. You know what I mean? Use one of these on different levels, just like you had in your thing.
Yeah.
It'd be easy. It's just a badge.
Right.
I think that question is also important because the way that, I mean, a lot of people here work in youth programs or youth science programs, so already think about this, but the structure for how we fund and create and finish and evaluate programs is really, it's hard to figure out what are the interconnections, and maybe that also ties into the transportation data, is also looking at longitudinal data of how youth are moving across programs, where they might even be able to, you know, finish up a program at the Peggy Noterbeer and then become the mapping expert at their ASM program. Or so, I mean, I think that's another interesting question, is the longitudinal pathway of how youth are gaining skills across programs, and how that goes into a career pathway opportunity.
I think it also might, it's not a question, it's a comment. It might also have to do with how you end the program. Like if you end the program with, this is where you could apply this knowledge. I mean, data literacy is actually a transferable skill, and if you sort of are in the mindset of playing data scientist the whole time, then what kind of data can you gather on your off hours, and what you can do with it? I think it also goes back to, I think I like what you said about your program is about food. So kind of understanding the implication of what you're doing is almost as important, if not more important, than the tools that you're using, because the tools change all the time.
So there were a couple of questions I was going to throw out just for you guys to think about as well. And you can come up and answer these for me at some point. But there are, so we've given you some ideas of some things we use, whatnot. I would be curious from anybody here later on about are there open source mapping, visualization, data collection platforms that you think may be applicable at the teen level that we're just missing, that you know about? People have already given us some of those, so thank you for that. One of the reasons we're going into this is we're seeing a lot of adult and professional level things on the OpenScience thing, but we haven't come across a lot where they're trying to use youth or engage youth in this way. If we've missed that, and you know of people who are doing that, we'd like to know that too. We're going to evaluate how well this is working with the kids this summer, but while we've got this captive audience of students who are going to provide for us, wow, we really love learning this and we can see the impact, or this makes no sense to us at all, or whatever feedback we get, are there things that you think would be valuable for us to be asking to find out where this thing may go? Again, we're going to be asking this of the youth. The whole idea here is this is youth driven. So we want their feedback, their response to what we're trying to do. Is it working and engaging them? So, you know, if you have thoughts about questions we could ask, we want to hear those too. If you are working with youth this summer and want to play around with some of these type of concepts and provide feedback and information to us too, we'd also love to talk to you on that as well. So anyway, these are some of the things thrown around here, and one of the big questions that came up here is we're going to be collecting all this stuff. We've got to figure out how we're going to get the youth across programs to share it. So again, throwing those out there for people to think about, but I know people had their hands raised too, so I don't want to miss that. Back here, Dan, right?
Yeah. So your list of tools and question about suggestions. Seeing a list of tools as the first step to teaching someone a higher level concept always makes me really nervous. And it's weird saying this as a geospatial professional, but I would actually throw away your list of tools and instead come up with, you know, a beginner, intermediate, and advanced list of concepts that you would teach first, and then use the tools as a way for them to implement it after they've sort of learned how it works. Because there's so much out there right now that youth are engaging in that has a spatial component. You know, whether they're tagging their location on Instagram or they're searching for something on Google Maps or whatever, you know, using that as the hook and saying, you know what, this is all kind of behind a veil of like shiny appness, but you can actually see how it works inside and see this list of numbers. That's where all the data comes from. And here now, why don't we take that out and put it into our own thing and show how that works, and then take it from that step on to analyzing and mashing things up and that type of thing.
Gotcha.
And so for each of those components, there's all kinds of tools.
So I guess I apologize, Dan, because one of the things we focused on were tools tonight, but that was where we started this. From our own standpoint, we didn't go into a lot of the details of the program itself. But there's a lot of, there's a lot of learning that's going on. I think we all work with youth and we're all doing that sort of thing. So I think we just kind of skipped that entire piece of it. But those conversations have been had. What we're struggling with is, so when we start doing those concept pieces, what do we then show them what to use to do that with? I think that's why we were tossing up lists of tools and stuff here. Not that that's what we started with. So I hope that that'll allay some of your nervousness there. It's the piece we're struggling with the most is, if we start talking concepts and that sort of thing, then what do we direct them to? Because we don't direct them to the wrong thing that's at such a level they can't then apply it.
Right. We understand that, you know, everything is not going to work for everybody, but we have to have a starting point. We just can't, you know, have, you know, 50,000 pieces of tools out here. If we're trying to make a policy decision, if we're trying to be influential with our Chicago public school system, we have to have something concrete to say, these things pretty much work really good if you're doing this, and if you gave us a little more money, we can do some other things, you know. So it's more so just to having a starting point. And then the programs this summer will be those that we're testing to see if it works. And we might, you know, come with the final deliverable to say we don't like any of this stuff. It didn't work. The kids didn't, you know, function well here, and we may need to move into another direction. we want to be, again, influencers with the information, and we're, this is a pilot this summer as well. So to Raphael's point, we did spend a lot of time talking about the actual programs and then trying to find synergy across the programs of what we would try to capture from a data perspective.
Right. So in addition to what's up on the website right now, we've got you can go to the OpenScience one and read the high proposal for what we're going to try to do. But there's also like the whole program plan for what we're doing this summer, which is all about what are the environmental science things they're learning in the field, what are the data collection techniques, why this is important, all that sort of thing. And so we've got that kind of plotted out. So I think, yeah, it may be a mischaracterization because we were throwing up the tools here that's what we're starting with. So.
Yeah, another place that you may have already looked here too, the OpenStreetMap community has done a lot of work, and you should talk to Nick about that, but a lot of sort of mobilization of teams of youth and other places. And then at the State of the Map conference this year, there was a whole track on OpenStreetMap for education, where folks were talking about how they brought OpenStreetMap into the classroom. So there might be some good materials there too.
I heard a couple requests of us in general, but you didn't tell us how to get the information to you. You asked us for information by existing programs.
So we at Smart Chicago, hey, you see me swing over? We at Smart Chicago are big fans of the WooFoo Forum. So Dan or somebody is going to, do a WooFoo Forum with some questions and some stuff, and we'll, put it out there, and you guys just, answer it and send it to us, and then we'll try to aggregate it and get back. And we'll do a follow-up, probably via blog post about kind of what we found and shared, and then we'll probably, once we move forward with our next step in our actual Hive project, we'll have our first meeting of the OpenScience Cooperative at some point where we can talk about things in detail about the bigger picture.
Does anybody else have any questions, comments, data? Yes?
Can you go back to the biology advance? Then just put the different things along with the beginners,
Back here, the three that we're looking at.
And to address the point, absolutely, you have to teach people with concepts, and to, you have to have something, though. So this is sort of what we decided to go with, but we always try to teach people to say, conceptually, here's what you would be doing in this level. Copy pasting, or finding some other make-ready tool, because any tool can come out the next day. We just heard about 3 that I never heard of just now. So it's just teaching people how to evaluate software and how to interact with software is absolutely fundamental to everything we do. That, hey, there's help files, there's, Google it, there, copy paste error messages, exactly, all those sort of things we definitely do. So that's quite well taken. Anything else before we? Well, then that brings us to the end of our evening. And you're free to chill out and talk. Yay!
I got one.
Emmanuel Pratt, what do you got?
Sorry. Sorry.
Don't get up yet.
Yeah, one of the things I've also been extremely OCD about is documenting handshakes and introductions of people across other boundaries, geographic, race, class, what have you, and in trying to figure out a tagging system or some kind of codification process to figure out, well, that handshake led to an actual commitment that led to actual dollars, that led to a follow-through, that led to a mentorship, that led to another idea and innovation and project, and now that kid is doing. So if you have any thoughts on the handshake and the value of a handshake as a social contract and the zip codes of the transportation, because now we're finding people that are giving people rides because they ain't had no ride, right? Let me know. That is all no.
Is there anything further? We drive things to the complete end here. And we never stop until everyone has said everything they want to say. Is there anything further? Then we have completed our meeting.